G'day from Australia. My name is Ashley Davis. Welcome to my coding live stream. As well as live streaming this, I'm recording it and it will be available on YouTube later for anyone that couldn't make the live stream. You are watching me build a full stack application from nothing, and I'm going to do my best to explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You can see my handle on it on the screen all the time. And this is recorded live, so as you might imagine, anything can go wrong. And there's nothing wrong with things going wrong. It's the day-to-day nature of development that there are constant problems getting in our way. And despite whatever problems might occur, we're going to have some fun and enjoy the process and just work through whatever issues come up. Before we get into coding, I'll start with the tradition we have here in Australia. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm broadcasting. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. So I'm doing these live streams to support my new book, Rapid Full Stack Development. This is a book that can help you become a faster developer. And it's not just about coding more quickly. That's only going to get you so far. We become faster by producing more reliable code. And that means we spend less time debugging and fixing it. We also become faster by writing more valuable code, and that means we spend less time working on code that we're eventually not going to use anyway. The example application that I'm building, so you can see this webpage anyway, rapidfullstackdevelopment.com, and if you navigate to the example application part of it, you can see the application that we're building. It's called Photosphere. So this is an application that we can use to upload and store our photos and videos and be able to view the collections that we've uploaded through a gallery. At the moment in the live stream today and probably tomorrow as well, we are building a simple monolithic backend using Node.js and JavaScript. We are using Git for our version control so that we can capture working code as we create it. The code that I'm creating, it's available on GitHub. I'll show you that in a moment so you can have a play with it yourself. In yesterday's session, I asked the question, why? Why am I doing this? And each time you start a new coding session, and in fact, multiple times throughout the day, you should be doing this. You should be asking this question, like, why am I doing this? And am I still heading in the right direction? Am I still working on the right code? And am I still investing my time wisely? Asking yourself these questions frequently during your own development process is really going to put you on a path to being a faster developer. Because you're going to be doing the right things. You're going to be thinking it through and making sure you're on the right track. And having thinking and reevaluation embedded in our development process, it's really, I believe it's a really crucial part of an efficient development process. I'm going to jump straight into it today. Please look up the previous session on YouTube. You can find that on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Code Capers. If you look under playlists, you will see the Rapid Full Stack Development playlist. There's only one video here, so that video is yesterday's live stream. Please watch that video if you need to catch up. Why am I building this? Just a quick recap anyway on why I'm building Photosphere. Well, for one thing, I need an example application for my book, Rapid Full Stack Development. That's one thing. So the example code is like a vehicle through which I can teach you techniques for being a faster and more effective developer. I also want this application for myself because, I want a better way to manage my own photos and video. So I do have personal motivation for building this application and writing this code. Now, just as a reminder to what we're doing with the backend, I'm going to show you the diagram that I made. So this is the diagram of the backend that I'm building for Photosphere and the various HTTP request handlers that I'm going to add to it. Yesterday, I created a very basic Express-based web server. Today, I'm going to start adding some of these routes, the route to upload an asset, the route to get an asset, and probably tomorrow, probably not, we won't get to it today, but probably tomorrow, we'll get to the HTTP GET route to get the list of assets that have been uploaded. So eventually, we're going to have a front end on this as well. We're not doing that today, we're just doing the back end today. Eventually, we're going to have a front end that's going to allow the user to upload a photo or a video and be able to view a particular asset and be able to view a gallery of all their photos and videos. So this is where we are heading. The code I'm developing in this live stream and generally for the book is all available open source on GitHub. So look up the organization, Rapid Full Stack Development. what we're working on today. I created this code repository yesterday. If you watch the previous video, you can see me creating this. The Photosphere monolithic backend live stream repo. So that's a bit of a long name for a repo, but I'm just trying to keep all this really well organized so that we can find this stuff again later and know how it was created when it was created. There's a README here now. In between yesterday's live stream and today, I've written a README. I've done a little bit of formatting improvements on the repo as well, but you can get this for yourself really easily. So the quick and easy way to get it is to go to the code button here and just download the zip file. But we're using Git for everything in this live stream, so you probably want to get the HTTPS version. Click here to copy the URL to the repo, then open a terminal, and then you can do a git clone on that repo. Oh, so I've already got the repo locally. This is one of those problems you get in live stream that you just don't expect. I've already got a copy of that repo. Let me show you. So you can see I've already got a copy of that repo. I mean, this is the thing that I created in the previous live stream. And I want to demonstrate getting a new copy of it. I simply just have to put it in a new directory. So I'll just make a version 2 directory here. So I'm cloning the repo. So see, I've got 2 there now. This is the one that I just cloned. I'm going to change directory in there. Now, all you need to start running this is npm install to get the project dependencies from the Node package repository. I'm not going to wait for this to complete. It could take a few minutes, but so once the dependencies are installed, you can run npm start to run this, or npm run start to dev to run it in development mode with live reload. Now, I'm just going to ignore that repo. I'm just going to go back to the repo that I was working with yesterday, and we'll come back to just getting into the code and working on the code and working towards our fully featured backend for Photosphere, which will be a REST API. I'm just opening Visual Studio Code from this directory. So I've got it all as it was open yesterday. I'm just going to close everything down and start again. We'll start by looking at the to-do list. So I created this to-do list yesterday. We got through all this stuff. What I'm up to now is being able to upload an asset. So I want to make a HTTP post request handler. Let me zoom in so you can see that. A HTTP post request handler for accepting an incoming asset and saving it locally in the file system. Now, before I start coding, anytime you start a new coding session, so you come back to coding, maybe you've had a break, maybe it's only a short break, so I will have multiple coding sessions in a day. You come back to coding, you want to be sure that everything is still working. So the first thing you need to do is kind of run some tests. So we can start it in production mode, we can start it in development mode. Doesn't really matter. I mean, there's nothing to this app really. This is what we did yesterday. It's the Hello World Express application. So it's a simple web server that when you kind of hit the route here, it just returns Hello World into the browser. So you can see here we've got an application for a web server running on port 3000. So I can just test. So we've got our Hello World application up and running. Nothing too exciting, but it's just important to know that when we're starting a coding session, that we're starting it with working code. I mean, the output of each increment of coding, or each kind of iteration of coding that I do, and each thing that I commit to version control, has got to be working code. So this should be, assuming there's nothing that I've left over from my previous session, which there could be, but there's not. If I do a git status, there's no outstanding code to go up. There's no code to be committed or pushed or anything like that. So this, by definition of my process, this should be working code, because to the best of my knowledge anyway, to the best of what I can achieve, I only commit working code. But I just want to test that. I just want to make sure that when I start a fresh coding session, that I am starting with a working base of operations, basically. Now, just to warm up here, I'm just going to make the world's simplest REST API. It's just going to be a test. It's just going to return a little bit of JSON, a little snippet of JSON that's going to say hello world. So I've made a simple HTTP GET request handler here. I've basically overwritten the original request handler for the root route. I don't need that. I don't need this thing to print hello world at that. But I just want to make sure I can do this, and I'm going to use it to demonstrate a nice little testing technique as well for testing REST APIs. So I'm going to run this again now. I'm going to run it in my development mode though, so I get live reload, so I can make changes to this and see the changes live. Now I can still test this in the browser, of course. I'm going to do that. I'm going to test this in the browser. I'm going back to localhost 3000. There's nothing on the root route there. There's nothing there now, so I cannot get that. But what I can do is put my test on here. So I'm hitting the test subroute of this API, and what it's getting me back is, you can't really see because I've zoomed in too much. Let me reset the zoom and then zoom in again. So the plugin I'm using to render this is called JSON Viewer. Otherwise, it just prints out as text. But what you get here in your output is like a nicely formatted JSON file. So it's really easy to read. But I'm just looking at this through the browser. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you a better way to kind of test this REST API that we're going to use throughout the backend live stream, really, as the preeminent way to test the code that we're building. Now, I've got a plugin already installed in Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to show you a web page for that. So this is the web page for VS Code REST client. This is a fantastic plugin to Visual Studio Code that allows you to write scripts that can exercise your REST APIs, your backend code, directly from just a little script file that you have in your VS Code workspace. So you don't even have to leave VS Code to basically exercise or test your REST APIs. There's great documentation here. You can see there's a lot that it can do. I'm just going to show you what it can do. But I recommend, if you're going to use it, make sure you read a lot of this, because there's a lot of good stuff that this plugin can do that may not be obvious. I'm going to show you some of that through the live stream anyway. So I'm going to make a test folder where I'm going to put all my kind of auxiliary testing files. Under there, I'm going to create a file called, what will I call it? Backend.htp. So this is a script where I'm going to have HTTP requests. To do a simple request, we just type in get and then the URL that we want to get, which is localhost 3000/test in this case. There's no parameters, no arguments I need to pass for this to make it work. I do need to maximize Visual Studio Code here just so you can actually see the result. But you'll notice I've got a button here called send request. So if I click that, I actually get a response, and the response is what we saw in the browser, hello world, plus the headers and the status code. So I don't need to go back to the browser now to test this. I can close the browser. I can test my REST API without leaving Visual Studio Code. So that's really cool. Now I'm running this in live reload, so I can actually change the code here. Let's just change the code. So I can change this to my favorite alternative to hello world, which is hello computer, and I save that. And you can see over on the left here that it's restarting to do changes. And if I run my backend test script again, you can see that it now says hello computer. So I can just make changes to the code now and send requests, and I can do all my coding, and I don't have to leave Visual Studio Code. So how did I get this plugin? That's probably a question you have next. So on the left here, if you go to the extensions tab, you can just search for it, VS Code REST client, or actually just REST client. You don't even need the VS Code bit. And you can see that there it's come up as the first entry there in the search. And from here, you can see that I've, for me it says uninstall because I've already got it installed. But if this is the first time you're seeing it, you would just click install, and then you have that. And you would also be able to run these HTTP scripts that we've got. Now this is just to show you that we can add a test route. I'm just going to clean this up and delete that. We're going to add a proper route to upload an asset, a photo or a video in just a moment. I'll just leave this the way it is. In a moment, we'll use that to kind of test the upload. What I need here is I need like a photo or an image that I can upload to kind of test this API. So the first thing I'm doing is sort of organizing how I'm going to test this. So I've got my test directory here. You can see my backend script there. This is where I'm putting my test files. I've got a image that I sort of prepared earlier. I'm just going to copy that across. So this is a very simple placeholder image. Not a real photo, but it's not too exciting, but it does the job. So it's a little test asset that I can use to upload. I'm going to commit that to my repo because this is part of my testing process. It's part of the things that I need to kind of test this application. And now I'm going to write the upload code. Actually, even before I do this, I might actually just prepare the test script. So this is like a form of kind of manual test-driven development. So I'm gonna document my test script as I go. I'm going to be using HTTP post. I mean, that's the sort of the better way to add something. And in fact, I'm going to be sending the asset up, the binary sort of content of the asset up with the HTTP post. I'm going to be passing it up to my asset API that I'm going to add. The content type, let's just say, it's a PNG file, so we're going to upload. I want to tell the backend, what the original file of it was. So, what the original file name was. So I'll say that's placeholder.png. Now, all of this sort of thing would ordinarily be organized by your front end code, where you're allowing your user to upload the asset. But I don't have a front end yet, so we're not worrying about that. We're just making the back end at the moment, and we're going to add the front end to it later. So I'm going to sort of pipe into the body of this request my placeholder asset that I just added to my repo. So if I run this now, if I try to send this request, I'm going to get an error, like 404 not found, but because we haven't implemented it yet. And that's what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to need an asset route handler. This is a HTTP post request handler. So in the body of the request handler, I can pull out headers. So as you can see here in the script, one of the headers we've added is the file name. So this is the thing that we're kind of attaching to the request. And we can pull that out of the request and use it to identify our asset. We can also pull out the content type. I'm always looking just for the next simplest thing that works. So all I want to do here is make sure I can trigger this, maybe get a status code successful back, and just console log like what we got. What do we get here? The file name and the content type. An important thing about effective development is just don't move too quickly. Don't jump straight to we could be trying to store this in the cloud straight away, but we're not moving that quickly. We're making small, deliberate steps towards a more complex application. So now I should be able to run this, and when I run this, we want to actually kind of see the console logging as well. So hopefully when I run this, I'm going to get my status code 200. And I'm going to see over here that it prints out the name of this file, placeholder.png, and also this content type image PNG. So I'm predicting what I'm going to see next when I click this send request button. So I'm clicking send request. Oh, I've got an internal error. What is it? I've made a mistake in the code. I can see what it is immediately. So I'm just reading this really just to see what the problem is. And I think it is that I've got to call the send status function. Okay. So I'm clicking send request again. I've got a 200, but I haven't quite got what I expected over here. I'm seeing undefined, undefined. So let's dig into this and find out what's wrong. So it's so easy to make mistakes, especially in JavaScript. If you're working in TypeScript, then it would sort of prevent you from making this sort of a problem. What I'm missing here is not header. What I want is headers. Now, I could have figured this out. I know this. I just know this because I've had this problem before. But if I didn't know how to fix this problem, the next thing I would do would be to console log it. I would like console log request.header to see what was there. Okay, and then I'd reissue my request here. I'd see that there's a function called header, and that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting an object to come through. So I might want to go one level up. This is a little bit difficult now because, I mean, the request object is a big object, but hopefully you can kind of see what I'm aiming at here. If I send the request again, now I get a complete printout of the whole request. Now this is a lot to look through, so I'll probably be better off actually looking at the Express SDK documentation to kind of figure out what I was doing here. But somewhere in here, you'll see there are headers. Hopefully I can find it if I keep scrolling. You can see there's raw headers here, so that's a clue that I got the name wrong. But what I'm actually looking for is the headers object. I can't even find it. But so let's just assume that I went to the Express documentation. I realized my mistake, that there was headers, but I want to confirm that. I can do that with, once I know that it's there, then I can do it with console.log. I'm just going to run this request again. And you can see here now I've got a list of the headers that are attached to it. So console.log is like a great way for just seeing what's there. Sometimes, like you saw a moment ago, sometimes you just get too much information, and it's a better idea to kind of read the docs to figure out how to use something. Anyway, let's get this working the way it's supposed to be. So I'm pulling out these headers out of my request, the file name and the content type, and I'm printing those. I'm going to send my request again. So we've got what we expected here is a 200 OK. And now we've got the name of the file being printed out. And we've also got the content type being printed out. So this is a step in the right direction. Have some working code. Now I can remove that console logging and get to the next bit, which is the file actually here, because of the way we're using the script here, the file is being piped into the request body. So what the next thing we need to do here is to be able to save that file to the file system. Now to do that, I need to have, I need to be able to make a file name. And I've already got the file name here, so I'm just going to use the same file name in the backend. So I'm identifying assets by their local file name when it's copied to the backend. Longer term, that's not a good idea. Longer term, we want to use something like a database ID. We don't even have a database yet, so we can't do that. So I'm just trying to find the next simplest thing that works and gets me towards my end goal. So I'm going to construct a file name, a local file name in the backend. We're going to use the path library. We're going to join together whatever is the current directory where this is running. And we're going to say put all our files in an uploads subdirectory. And we're going to use that file name. So this is what we're going to be saving it to locally. If I wanted to kind of debug what that looked like, or check what that looked like, I would console log it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to move on because I need to get a move on. Now I need to import the path library. I'm also going to need to load the file, so I'll need the FS, the Node.js file system library. So I've imported path here because I'm using path here to kind of join them together. Now I'm going to create a stream to write this file locally. So I'm going to create a writable stream going to my local file name. I'm also going to manually create an uploads directory here as well. Otherwise, the upload will fail and I would see an error message. Now, the nice thing about Express is the incoming request, it's actually a Node.js stream. So we can just pipe that to our file write stream. We basically just wait for it to finish its operation. So we're sort of handling the finish event here on the file stream. And this is where we want to kind of send our success. So we've written the file to the file system. I'm just going to put a console log in there to say done writing, just so I can visually see. I'll change my quotes there, just so I can visually see what's going on looking at the console logging. Now, there's a problem here. There could be an error. There could be some kind of error writing it. So I need to handle the error event as well. And this is where I'm going to send a status code 500 to say that there was some sort of unexpected error. and I'll get the error through actually as an object to this function here, this error handler, and I'm going to print that. So just printing out the name of the file there that we're dealing with, and then just dumping the error to the console to see what happens. Let's look at my script. So, yeah, we've implemented a HTTP post. Let's check that. If it wasn't post, if it was get, there'd be an error. We're not doing anything with the content type yet. I'm not going to worry about that just yet. We will use that later. So we're getting the content type through, the file name through, just double checking everything that I've done here. I'm piping that image in. So I'm expecting that to come in and through the request and then be piped to the output file stream. And then if it finishes successfully, I'm sending a status code OK. Otherwise, I'm sending a status code error. Drum roll, please. Let's see if this works. I'm just gonna have a quick look at the console actually to see if there's any errors. So no errors, no recent errors. It's restarted after my recent changes. There's no errors. I'm gonna run this. Oh, we've triggered an error. So now to solve this error, there's probably going to be like an error message on the console. So I'm going to have to go back to my terminal and interpret what's happening here. So there is no such directory. Uploads. I thought I created the uploads directory. This is the kind of error that you get when you don't create the uploads directory. Oh, it thinks it's under the source directory. So I've put it in the wrong place, but I don't want it under the source directory because it's not source code. I actually want it to be in that root directory. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say the dir name here is kind of wrong. So the dir name that I'm passing in is the source directory, and what I really want is one up from that. So let's just say we go up one directory, and that's where the uploads directory is. So fingers crossed. It's going to work now. And I've got a status code 200. Okay, so that's awesome. So I've just written some code to upload an asset to the backend, and I'm running the backend locally, of course. I'm not actually running it in the cloud or anything like that. Eventually that's where the backend's going to run. It's going to run in the cloud. But I'm developing it locally because working locally is the most effective and efficient way to work. You don't want to be working across a internet connection and be subject to the bandwidth constraints of that internet connection. I'm working locally. So my code, my backend is running locally, and I should see here in the uploads directory, I should see my image has been copied there. Placeholder.png. So that wasn't there before. In fact, I'll delete that just to show you there's nothing there. So there's nothing in uploads. I run my request. It's going to copy this one here. So this one under the test directory, basically going to upload that into my backend. And you can see I've just done that again. Got a success code 200 here. And we've got an uploaded photo. So we're on track. We're moving towards having a REST API where we can upload assets. Time to commit. I've got some working code here. It's time to commit it. So I could do this from the command line, but it's much easier to diff our work using a UI. So I'm using the fork UI. I'm just going to go to my change set here. So here you can see the changes that I've made today. First thing I notice here is that I don't want to kind of put my my uploads, which I'm going to be using to test it every session. I don't want to put that into version control. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this to my git ignore. I'm going to say ignore it, ignore all files in uploads. As you can see, that updates the git ignore file, and the uploads directory has been added to it. So I'm going to stage that. So I'm working through, I'm checking each thing that I've done, and I'm staging it individually as I go. So now this is some things that I do want to commit. So I do want to commit my script that I'm using to test this, my VS Code REST client script. I definitely want to commit that. So this is what I'm going to use continually in the future to test that this API still works. And I also want to commit my placeholder asset as well. So I'm going to use that multiple times in the future. I don't want to lose it, but when I don't want to lose something, that's when it's got to go in version control. And now we're looking at the diff here of the index.js file. You can see that I removed the original hello world test. I've added some imports, and I've added a larger route handler here. So this is where I'm uploading my asset. This is where I'm kind of getting my asset in through the HTTP request. I'm piping that into my local file system, and then using the response object, I'm sending a status back to say whether we succeeded or failed. So I think it's super important that before you do any commit, that you work through all your changes. And the UI, like a UI like Fork here, is a really good way to do this. It's a little bit harder to do this kind of thing. Not impossible, but a little bit harder to do this kind of thing from the command line. Using something like Fork, it's much easier to kind of see what you've done. And I would say before you commit your code, understand every line of code that you're committing, understand how it helps your product, how it works, how it's necessary. And if you don't commit it. Like, just hold off. Like take a step back and try to understand what you've done and how it's going to affect the rest of the system. So thinking like this, self-review, double checking your own work is a really powerful way to basically not commit bugs. And often you will catch yourself, almost about to commit something really embarrassing or really silly, some debugging code, some silly mistake or a typo or just something that you forgot to test. Like, this is a really simple way just to filter out all the really, really silly mistakes that you might otherwise commit. So I'm happy with that code anyway. It's not much to look at there because we're just starting out. But I'm going to do this every commit. And sometimes in the live stream, I'll just sort of gloss over it. But just know that when I'm working for real, in my real kind of job, in my real production environment, I'm really assessing everything that I'm committing to make sure that it's contributing to like a positive forward direction for whatever product I'm working on. So I'm going to commit that and push that in a moment. After I finish the live stream, it's all staged, ready to commit, ready to push. I don't need to really kind of show you that process. I've showed you it before. You'll be able to check back after the live stream to see that code is there, to get it for yourself, to try it out for yourself. So just a quick plug for the book before I kind of leave the live stream today. To be an efficient and productive developer, it's not enough just to code quickly. You also need to be able to write code that is reliable and valuable. If you are good at making reliable and valuable code, you can code slowly and you will still outperform many other developers. So this is the kind of thing that you can learn from my new book, Rapid Full Stack Development. I'll be continuing this live stream at the same time tomorrow, where we're going to talk about the other end of this, which is today we've uploaded an asset. Tomorrow, we're going to be able to retrieve that asset back from the REST API. So hope you've learned some valuable things. Please subscribe to get updates on the book. Follow me on Twitter at CodeCapers for more frequent updates. And I'll see you tomorrow for some more live stream coding.